We all know Gunther is John Cena's final opponent this Saturday at Saturday Night's Main Event, but who should have been John Cena's final opponent? How's it going, everybody? My name is Casey Cameron. Welcome back to Leg Slapper, and yes, we are going to discuss some other potential options for who could have faced John Cena in his last match. I'm trying to stick to what I think are the best options, and I did list them in order of worst to best here, at least in my mind. Realistically, as far as I'm concerned, when you look at the roster and you're trying to decide who should be John Cena's final opponent, I completely agree with the WWE. I think Gunther is the correct choice. Gunther will be the guy to retire John Cena, but let's take a look at who else could have been a great option. Well, what about main event Jey Uso, the man who beat John Cena at the Royal Rumble to win the Royal Rumble? Obviously, Jey Uso has been placed back in the tag team division. I don't think he'll be there long. I think we're going to get a heel turn against Jimmy so that we can run back Jey versus Jimmy at WrestleMania in 2026. But let's ignore that for now. The history between Jey Uso and John Cena, the history of the two really isn't there. There isn't a lot of meaty history to dig into. I'm sure they've had some great matches before. In recent memory, the only thing that I can think of that is meaningful is Jey Uso eliminating John Cena from the Royal Rumble. Although you could say, yes, they did technically have that tag match as well at Money in the Bank. Honestly, Jey Uso could have been a really interesting choice to face John Cena if the WWE really wanted to shoot Jey to the moon. But the problem is that if you gave Jey this win, what does that mean for the fan base? Because I know the fans in attendance would probably be happy, but I don't think anyone else online would be. But let's think about this. Let's say Jey Uso does it. He is the one that retires John Cena. Where does he go from here? That means we either need Jey to get into the title picture for WrestleMania, which I do not think is happening for either world title, or he needs some kind of match with Roman Reigns, which I also do not necessarily think is going to be happening this WrestleMania. So yeah, as far as Jey Uso is concerned, I don't think he would have been a great pick to be John Cena's last opponent. I'm glad that he wasn't the pick to be John Cena's last opponent. I'm glad that LA Knight was actually able to get the win over Jey Uso. Speaking of which, let's talk about the man who beat Jey Uso in the Last Time Is Now tournament, LA Knight. The last time is now, and LA Knight is coming through. So how good of a selection would the runner-up of the Last Time Is Now tournament be? What if LA Knight actually was able to defeat Gunther to go on to be John Cena's last opponent? If it were to come down to a match between the two, honestly, I don't even think I'd care who won. Obviously, a match like this would have to act as kind of another passing of the torch moment, a moment where it's like, okay, well, we have this old megastar and now we have the new megastar coming in. The whole thing would be a major vote of confidence for LA Knight, which is great. And I mean, if the reports are to be believed, I mean, let's take that all with a pinch of salt because who knows anything on the internet. Apparently, LA Knight's looking to get a big push in 2026, and that could have been a great way to strap the rocket to him. A move like this would have been great, but I would say again, it would be a little ill-timed because what do we have for LA Knight at WrestleMania? Sure, you could put him in for the World Heavyweight Championship over on Raw, but the thing is I think Braun's going to be busy, and I think he's going to be really specifically busy with some big names that aren't LA Knight. This match probably would have just been okay. I think you would have run into some issues running a babyface versus babyface match for John Cena's last match because you do run the risk of LA Knight getting booed. And if you don't want him to get booed, that's obviously a bad thing. I just think the fans might be a little confused about how they feel and like what they want because they like LA Knight, but they want to see John Cena win his last match. So I think it might just dampen crowd reactions because people might just be like, I don't know how to feel. But what I gotta say is whether you use this for a mega babyface push or you turned LA Knight heel in this match, I think it's clear that everybody would be saying one name to retire John Cena, LA Knight. Yeah. Up next, we've got Brock Lesnar, and the Beast is back for one last match. Before we even get into this, I'm going to acknowledge I don't think we need Brock Lesnar in the WWE. I don't think we need him to have a match with John Cena. Yes, I think he's an incredible force, and him being beaten by people will make them an even bigger deal. That's great. Do we need Brock versus John? Again, no. We did get that match during John Cena's retirement tour, and people really hated it. But the thing is, Brock and John Cena have a lot of history together, so having Brock be the guy to retire John Cena would actually make a ton of sense. It would be framed as Brock versus John one last time. Earlier in the year, Brock decimated John Cena, so can John Cena do it? Can he pull himself together? Can he put on one last superhero performance to take down the Beast? And again, this is all the more interesting because John Cena typically struggles to pick up victories against Brock Lesnar. And as much as I hate to say it, I think the fans in attendance would probably be on their feet for the entirety of this match. I think they would be super into it because they would be so against Brock Lesnar and so for John Cena. They would be practically begging for a John Cena victory here. And you could do whatever you want. If Cena went over Brock, it's a great happy ending. He finally managed to vanquish the Beast. And if Brock went over, well, great. There you go. Brock is an even bigger wall for the rest of the WWE roster to contend with. But that's enough about him. Let's talk about CM Punk. We're gonna reignite this iconic struggle one last time. And yes, we're kind of in the same boat here. CM Punk did get a match with John Cena during his retirement tour. In fact, you could say he had a couple because they did actually clash in the Elimination Chamber match. But besides that, we could do it one last time. It could have been done. The main problem with picking CM Punk to be the guy to retire John Cena is that he's currently the world champion and he's a little bit busy. Then at the same time, as appetizing as a pick CM Punk might be, he's also toward the end of his career. So having CM Punk retire John Cena doesn't actually do anything for the rest of the WWE. It just makes a fun match and a nice moment for two guys. Let's be honest, nobody would be mad about a match like this because the match probably would be awesome. And I mean that from a storytelling perspective more so than an in-ring perspective, though that probably would be great too. Punk makes perfect sense because he was one of John Cena's greatest rivals, but the problem with that is that we don't have that version of CM Punk. Braun Breaker literally just called it out on Raw. We do not have the same CM Punk that we had in his prime. We really do not. This new corporate babyface Punk is really, really tiring. He's really, really grating. It's actually really funny to watch my girlfriend's reaction for someone you're supposed to really, really like. Every time his music hits, she literally like rolls her eyes. She does not want to see CM Punk. She thinks he's boring. And honestly, I agree. Yes, Punk can still absolutely put on bangers when he's with the right people, but right now, I don't care at all about CM Punk, and that's not something I should be saying about the world champion. This match would just basically be a meaningless exhibition, so no, honestly, I'm actually not really that in favor of CM Punk versus John Cena, but it would be a cool option. Up next, we have another guy who faced John Cena during his retirement, AJ Styles, and he's gonna beat up John Cena one last time. Now, obviously, they had an absolute classic this year that does not need to be undone. That was perfect, and honestly, because of that, you could argue that they don't need another match. That was their classic last match, and that is perfect. It should be preserved as it is. But at the same time, the story of the last match of John Cena being the top WWE guy versus the top TNA guy, the Forever Dream match that did end up happening, the Forever Dream feud that did end up happening one last time. Look at the match they had. This match would be incredible. And a move like this would also allow AJ Styles to become a little bit more interesting. If AJ Styles even picked up the win here, that would be a great way to transition AJ Styles into what he seems to be telegraphing will be the final year of his career. And that way you could set him up for some really cool things and some really fun storylines moving forward. I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't be mad if they ran this at all, and I think it makes perfect sense. Up next, we have Cody Rhodes, and this would be the final moment to pass the torch. Now, obviously, we had the passing of the torch moment, and we don't need to change that, but would Cody Rhodes be a great option for John Cena's final match regardless? Yeah, I do think so. If you've seen my recent video where I rebooked John Cena's retirement, you'll actually know that I did give Cody Rhodes John Cena's retirement match in that video. And it's a long story and a different version of events, so you should go check it out and then come back to this video. The one thing that I have to say is that for as much sense as this makes and as fun as some people would have with it, I think a lot of people would actually dislike this match. I think people would say we're getting too much Cody and too much John Cena, even though it makes perfect sense for this to happen. Had the year played out just a little bit differently, this match could have been perfect, and Cody would be #1 on this list. But the thing here is if you want Cody to be the white meat babyface that he kinda is right now, you don't want him walking into a match with John Cena where he was already kind of on the verge of getting booed against a heel John Cena. We do not want to see what happens to Cody Rhodes going into a match with face John Cena, his last match ever. I don't know what that crowd reaction would be, but I don't think it's what the WWE would want, which is probably why this match is not happening. In one world, this match is perfect, just not our world. How about Sheamus? Old friends and rivals come together one last time for one last bang. Sheamus really could have been an awesome pick here. It would have been more exhibition style, but it could have been another thing that carried Sheamus into the new year and maybe set him up for some great things. But WWE is really heavily telegraphing that they are starting to grow tired of their veterans on the roster. And when I say that, what I mean is they are used less prominently, which again is a good thing as you're transitioning from your previous generation to a new generation. That's perfectly fine. But we have to acknowledge that that does seem to be the case. A finals of Sheamus versus Gunther would have been an awesome banger in the first place in that tournament, and then Sheamus versus John Cena, especially if John Cena still had that Intercontinental Championship. Oh my God. That's another match where the fans are on their feet the entire time because, well, does John Cena retire with the Intercontinental Championship? Does Sheamus get the one championship that has alluded to his career as well? There's so much fun storytelling that could be done with Sheamus versus John Cena. The two do have a lot of history from Sheamus's early work in the WWE, but honestly, the two kind of separated fairly quick, I would say. Much like some of the other ones I've talked about, I think this would be a great match. I just don't think WWE has like the actual will to do it. I would approve of Sheamus versus John Cena for John Cena's last match. Now, what about a wild card pick here? What about Oba Femi. What if Obafemi entered the tournament and he dominated the competition? This would be a way to absolutely strap a rocket to Obafemi, and I'm a little surprised they didn't do this with Obafemi because I think this would have been a perfect moment. I don't know if Gunther necessarily needs to beat John Cena. I want to see what WWE wants to do with their storytelling for Gunther before I make that judgment call, but I think Obafemi would probably be the number 2 pick I would have chosen to retire John Cena. I know, high praise. With Obafemi running through the tournament and then beating John Cena in his last match, we've just shown that Obafemi is more than ready for the entirety of the main roster, and he's still the NXT champion. Which means, oh my god, when we finally get to Obafemi on the main roster, what in the world is going to happen and who is going to be able to beat him? The entire build of this would just be, it's the new generation here to take out the old guard. Obafemi may respect John Cena, but now he's got to absolutely decimate him. Whether you want to know as a monster babyface or a monster heel, I think it's pretty clear that Obafemi is the future of the WWE, is the future of the main roster, and if anyone is going to step up and tell John Cena his time is up and their time is now, it would be Obafemi. What about The Rock? It is 2 icons of the industry. A lot of wrestling fans online have really turned on The Rock, and honestly, I'm kind of one of them. Not really because of anything that he's done, more so what he hasn't done. I'm just the type of person who feels if you are not going to be there weekly to be involved in the product, you should not be involved at all in the product. I know that if this match were announced, it would be absolutely enormous, but I also have to say that it would make my eyes roll directly into the back of my skull. It's once in a lifetime for the 3rd time. Yes, a match like this does make perfect sense, and it could be unique that we get to see a heel final boss Rock against a babyface John Cena, but no one benefits from this match. Even worse, The Rock would probably just be wasted here because he wouldn't end up showing up for TV for the rest of the year in the first place. A match like this does make sense, but I am glad we are in the timeline where this match does not happen. Now, what about Edge? Again, yes, this is absolutely one of the best options that literally never had a chance to happen. I think this would have been a perfect option for John Cena's final opponent. This match would be what I would consider to be John Cena, the babyface of the decade, once again going up against his first ever major heel in Edge. The first ever guy that was the foil to John Cena. But unfortunately, Edge is coping it over in AEW, so that can't happen, unfortunately. But oh my god, would this match have been amazing? And this match would be even better if you really let Edge move into a more heelish side of his character for this match, to have it be babyface versus heel, which I think is the perfect dynamic for this match. Another great option, especially if you want John Cena to win his final match, because Edge doesn't need the win. He's not even in the WWE, and even if he was, he didn't need the win if he was. But come on, it is perfect on the story alone. 2 bitter rivals, 2 old friends going to war one more time. Who will come out on top? Cinema. And last but not least, let's talk about the perfect final opponent for John Cena, in my opinion, Randy Orton. The final option here is basically the only veteran that was actually available for this match who I would have liked here. But again, if I'm making the choice between Randy Orton and Gunther, I would say Gunther should be the one because he has more to gain from it. While Edge may have been one of John Cena's first major heels, most people would consider Randy Orton to be the career-long foil for John Cena, the flip side coin to John Cena. It's a beautiful story that you could tell in the last match, especially with how close Randy technically is to John Cena's record. The only major issue here is that we did get this match during John Cena's retirement tour already, while John Cena was a heel. So we did kind of already get a unique bout. We don't really need to see it again. But if you just let Randy become his sick and twisted heel self, I think every single person would be on their feet the entire match. Can John Cena overcome Randy Orton one last time? And in this case, it's another instance where it doesn't even matter who goes over, because in both worlds, you can paint a beautiful picture, tell a wonderful story. Those are all the people that I think make the most sense to have potentially been John Cena's last opponent. I don't necessarily love all the options, but hey, those are the options that I'm trying to go pen to paper. Who makes the most sense? These guys make the most sense to potentially retire John Cena out of who is available. So yeah, tell me what you think. Who would you have liked to see retire John Cena? Would you have wanted to see LA Knight? Do you like Gunther doing it? Do you want to see somebody else entirely? Let me know. Fantasy book it down below. Tell me what you want to see. I've been Casey Cameron. Thank you for tuning into Leg Slapper, and I will see you in the next video.